So, what if I told you that all the biggest problems we see in big tech today, the toxic culture, the weird political power, its love-hate thing with the government, what if I told you all of that was diagnosed with shocking accuracy, like 25 years ago? We're going to dive into a book that tried to warn us and see just how much it explains the world we're living in right now.
I mean, think about the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. It feels like it just happened, right? And what was the first thing we saw? The exact same tech VCs and founders, the ones who are always preaching about less government and radical self-reliance, were suddenly screaming for massive federal bailouts to save their skin.
And that's the central paradox of Silicon Valley, isn't it? For decades, their whole identity has been built around this libertarian ideal, fighting regulations, hating taxes, pushing back on any kind of government meddling. So why is it that the second things go sideways, the government is the first number they call?
Well, it turns out the answer was laid out for us way back in the year 2000. It's in a book called Cyberselfish by a writer named Paulina Borsuk. She was an insider writing for magazines like Wired during the first dot-com bubble. She saw the blueprint for all this behavior being drawn up, and she actually gave the ideology a name. See, Borsuk's argument was that the tech industry's core belief system wasn't just some political philosophy. No, it was something much deeper, almost like a cultural program that didn't just excuse, but actually celebrated antisocial behavior.
She called it cyberselfishness, and this is the absolute key to understanding everything else. It's this belief system that basically says rejecting your civic duty is a good thing, a virtue even, all while building these gigantic fortunes on top of infrastructure like the internet itself that you and I, the public, paid for.
And that leads us right into the first major pillar of our argument, the absolutely stunning hypocrisy at the economic heart of Silicon Valley.
This slide just lays it out perfectly. Borsuk points out that almost every single piece of foundational tech, from the internet to microprocessors, came out of huge amounts of public funding and government research. And yet, the giants that grew out of it, Cisco, Intel, Microsoft, they built their entire empires while preaching this deep suspicion of the very government largesse that made their existence possible in the first place.
How deep did this go? Well, let's take a look. In the year 2000, at the absolute peak of its power, Cisco Systems, one of the biggest companies on the planet, paid this much in federal income tax. Zero, nothing, zilch. Through some clever stock option accounting, a company reaping all the benefits of public infrastructure gave absolutely nothing back to the public purse.
So how did they justify this? Well, this is where it gets brilliant. Borsuk totally nailed the strategic language they used. Anytime someone brought up regulations or taxes, these massive, powerful corporations would immediately paint themselves as these fragile, anti-establishment rebels. It's this victim narrative that let them demand all the good stuff from society, like property rights and legal protections, without having to take on any of the civic responsibilities.
But for Borsuk, this wasn't just about the money. She argued that the economic hypocrisy was really just a symptom of a much deeper issue, a kind of psychological flaw in the industry's entire mindset.
And this is one of the most provocative lines in the whole book. Borsuk basically says that techno-libertarianism isn't some well-thought-out political theory. Nope. She says it's just a fancy way to justify a basic personality flaw, one that's common in adolescence, the inability to deal with the fact that your own desires have to be balanced with the needs of everyone else.
So what does this mindset actually look like? Well, it's this deep craving for total freedom from any rules or constraints. It's a mindset that, as you can see here, would much rather deal with controllable machines than messy humans. I mean, it makes sense, right? Computers are logical. You can fix them. People are complicated and emotional and unpredictable. And the really dangerous result of this is that you start to see people themselves as just buggy code, something you can optimize, or if that doesn't work, just delete.
Now, Borsuk didn't just paint the entire culture with one brush. She saw that it wasn't monolithic. She actually identified two different tribes, or factions, that looked totally different on the surface, but deep down shared the exact same cyber-selfish DNA.
So on one side, you have the Gilder. This is your corporate type, the suit-and-tie conservative who's all about deregulation and making tons of money. And on the other side, you have the Raver. This is your Burning Man idealist, the crypto-anarchist who's always talking about personal freedom and fighting the corporate man.
But here's the kicker. Her crucial insight was that these two groups were really just two sides of the same coin. The suit and the hippie, the free market conservative and the bohemian, two ideals in America that were historically total opposites, had somehow merged. And the glue holding them together? A deep,
profound hostility to the government, and a radical focus on the self, above all else.
Okay, so this is where Borsuk's analysis stops being a sharp critique and starts becoming a genuinely chilling prophecy. Because the ideology she mapped out back in 2000, it didn't just go away, it went on to build the world we're all living in today. And her warnings were so specific, it's kind of scary. She literally wrote that if people with these childish political beliefs got real political power, it would be bad news for the world. Well, fast forward to today, and tech oligarchs are some of the most powerful political players on the entire planet. She predicted that the whole cypherpunk obsession with privacy would, ironically, create even more surveillance. And here we are, living under global data monopolies. The connections are just undeniable.
And this ideology, it completely rotted the culture from the inside out. Borsuk pinpointed the rise of what we now call programmer culture, this toxic stew of sexism and ageism. She even called out the absurdity of companies offering to pay for employees to freeze their eggs, a classic technological fix that lets them avoid solving the real problem, a work environment that's fundamentally hostile to a normal human life.
So here's the main takeaway, the thing to really let sink in. The sexism, the hypocrisy, the political chaos, the mass surveillance. None of it is an accident. These are not bugs in the system. According to Borsuk's 25-year-old diagnosis, they are the direct, inevitable features of an ideology that was built from the ground up on cyberselfishness.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question. This worldview, a worldview rooted in immaturity and pure self-interest, has already shaped our present. Now, as we're standing on the edge of the AI revolution and all these other world-changing technologies, the real question that Borsuk's work forces us to ask is, what is it building next?